The atmosphere in the hospital was heavy, in that way that only cold marble corridors and the smell of antiseptic can create, you know. Elijah Vance, the tech billionaire, was there, but not with the CEO power everyone knew. He was just a son, with a serious and worried expression, sitting next to his mother, the lovely Mrs. Eleanor. She was a woman of beauty and gentle soul, but her world was different, a place of total silence. The lack of effective communication was, frankly, exhausting, raising the stress familiarity at stratospheric levels in that already tense environment. The medical team, despite being competent, seemed at a loss for how to break through this invisible barrier. Elijah tried to gesture. I used the notepad on my cell phone, but the translation of these emotional nuances and doctors simply got lost, leaving Mrs. Eleanor even more anxious and isolated in her experience. Man, his frustration was palpable. The guy who ran digital empires couldn't decipher his own mother's pain. It seemed that no matter how much money and influence he had, access to that private world was denied. It was quite a lesson in how end-to-wells are relevant when it comes to true human connection. In that complex scenario in high vulnerability, enters the senior nurse Chloe. She was a new nurse, the kind whose voice is barely heard at the nurse's station, always focused on her work and with an almost painful shyness. No one expected her to be the key for the how much that was missing there. While most people hurried past, ignoring the body language retracted from Mrs. Eleanor, Chloe stopped. The girl had an unusual sensitivity, an empathy that seemed to go beyond what medical training teaches. She felt something, that connection in a click that only happens when we really see the other. She approached slowly, with a movement that was not one of professional superiority, but of sincere welcome, and Elijah prepared for yet another failed attempt at translation. What happened next was, well, a watershed. Chloe knelt lightly beside the bed, making eye contact, and then, with hands that had seemed clumsy before, began to move with a fluid Indresprisen, American Sign Language ASL. Mrs. Eleanor, who until then had seemed petrified and distant, broke into a huge smile, the kind that lights up the entire room and makes you feel a warm glow in your chest. Communication was no longer forced. She was, surprisingly, blooming there, without noise, without haste, just pure understanding. It was a moment of pure magic, one revelation that the most important language is not always spoken. Seeing that shy nurse transformed into an interpreter of soul was chilling. Elijah, he gaped, processing this new reality, his mouth dry, speechless. The relief on his face was so profound he could almost feel the weight lifting from his shoulders. Chloe wasn't just translating medical instructions. She was translating humanity, kindness, and brought the world of silence off Mrs. Eleanor. Suddenly, the hospitality didn't seem so cold anymore. It had transformed into a place of genuine connection. A trust of Mrs. Eleanor in the nurse Chloe was not achieved by diplomas or prestige, but by the simple act of seeing the person she really was and respecting her unique form to communicate. This unexpected welcome opened doors not only to better treatment, but to something much deeper, an emotional bridge. Elijah looked at the scene, realizing that this simple woman kept stability that was worth more than his entire technological empire. What happened in those days was not just a provision of health services. It was the birth of a human being, unexpected, strong and genuine, right there, in the middle of that sterile environment. Elijah Vance was still present, of course, but now he was no longer the center of attention. The focus had shifted to the dynamic duo that had formed, nurse clone Mrs. Eleanor. The way Chloe interacted, the patient spelling of complex medical words and concepts with her hands demonstrated a dedication that went beyond the badge and the job description. He realized that this was not just a work for her. Elijah began to observe Chloe more closely, almost as if he were studying a new and fascinating phenomenon. The tycoon used to deciphering spreadsheets and algorithms, was now trying to decipher the sensitivity and the authentic care of a young nurse. She asked for nothing. She didn't boast about ability in ASL. She simply was attentive. This humility and this disinterested connection with his mother hit him in a way that years of corporate success and money it would never get. It was a real-life lesson. A proximity between the two women was undeniable. While Mrs. Eleanor opened up more and more, telling stories through the fluid movement of her hands and laughing, the atmosphere in the room became light, almost joyful. This transformation, the mother's emotional state, was what impressed the most Elijah. He understood that the health it did not depend only on tests and medications, but fundamentally on her mental well-being and the feeling of being vista and understood. Little by little, Elijah began to see each otherwise, no longer as a discreet hospital employee, but as a professional of incalculable value, a gentle soul who carried a rare skill and one huge heart. He noticed the little gestures, the pillow being adjusted, the water at the right temperature, the way she communicated with your eyes before even using your hands. This attention to detail spoke volumes about the character. Whether the Billionaire has always valued cold efficiency and to maximum productivity in his business, he was learning a surprising truth. To human dedication and to empathy are the most valuable coins in existence. He realized that connection with his mother was something he, with all his resources, could never have bought. This personal experience, he was remodeling your own definition of success and impact. Sometimes during sign language conversations, Elijah tried to interact, and Chloe, without effort or judgment, made the translation. She was the bridge that was missing, and he felt deeply grateful for this divine intervention. A trust of Mrs. Eleanor in the nurse, it was total, and that gave to Elijah one peace of mind that he hadn't felt in a long time, relieving its immense concern. That admiration discreet of Elijah by close growing, surpassing professional respect. He saw in her a purposing one silent force that were incredibly attractive. But he was still in that place of observation, pondering what to do with this new perception. One idea, something big was starting to form in his mind, something that could change her life, but he still didn't know exactly how to approach it. Opportunity, that one how much created in the hospital room, opened the door for longer, deeper conversations to take place, often with Ms. Eleanor as the gentle, silent mediator. In one of these calmer moments, while helping with the patient's medication, Chloe began to open up with Elijah in a subtle way. She wasn't the type to complain or seek attention, but kindness is and the trust mutual that was established encouraged her to share small fragments of your past. You know that moment when you feel safe to tell something that he has kept for a long time? That was exactly it. Elijah listened attentively. He discovered that the passion of Chloe for nursing and for helping people with hearing impairment came from a personal experience very striking and painful. Her career, which should have been a path of professional achievement and success, had suddenly been marked by injustice that hit her heart. The way she spoke, without rancor, but with a slight melancholy in her eyes, showed that the wound was still there, but she was determined to overcome it. She told about an incident at the previous institution, a situation where the ethics and to dedication were questioned in a way unfair, leading to a shutdown that made her doubt everything. Wow, that's terrible. The sensitivity to integrity of Chloe, which were so evident there in the care with Ms. Eleanor, had been completely ignored. This personal experience had forced her to start over, in a less visible but no less visible environment. Important and first. She could have become bitter, thrown in the towel, but no. She took the pain and turned it into a purpose even stronger, seeking places where your unique skill could make a real difference. It was living proof that the scars can become a paths for a better future. This inner strength was something that he himself, Elijah, in your world of business and I deeply admired. She revealed that the connection with the sign language was something she had developed to help a relative, and that this dedication made her a teacher informal to other people. The irony did not go unnoticed. The injustice that took her away from a place and led her to a path where she could use her sensitivity in a way advanced directly into the life of Ms. Eleanor. Fate, sometimes, has a curious way of guiding us. Elijah felt an urge to protection and innate this woman. He, who was used to solving problems with a touch of magic money. I realized that the damage that she suffered demanded more than that. It demanded recognition, restoration, and one opportunity of gold for her to prove her value invaluable. The story of Chloe was a powerful reminder that the success is not always linear. He began to understand that in order to take the next step, he need facts and of concrete information about what really happened, because injustice can go unpunished. That detail from her past lit appetite in the mind of Billionaire, one strategy that was just beginning to take shape in his head. He needed to dig deeper to find what he would call true, and this search would take him to unexpected places. The conversation took on an even more intense tone, intimate and serious, the kind that makes your throat dry up just by hearing the story. pressured by empathy and by insistence kind of Elijah, who felt there was something more to the story, Chloe finally released the secret which she kept under lock and key injustice in her career. She took a deep breath, seeming to gather all her courage of the world, and revealed the identity of the person responsible for staying in your professional trajectory. Silence that followed was deafening. The chin of Elijah almost fell. The person mentioned was not some stranger, a random name from a distant corporation. No, it was someone from his own circle of friends, trust and can, Mr. Gregory Thorne, none other than your founding partner and business partner long time at the giant technology company, Vance Thorne Industries. Whoa, that's a breathtaking plot twist. A connection who settled there, based on sincerity and no reception, suddenly turned into a minefield of interests and lockly anchises. Chloe to explain the details sorted. Gregory, in a position of leadership in the old health institution where she worked, she had hushed up scandal of mismanagement and used to dedication her as a scapegoat to protect the reputation of the company. It was a dirty game of king and manipulation. For Elijah, a noose it was a double blow. Not only his trusted partner had been the victim of a slander, but the perpetrator of this despicable act was the person he considered almost like a brother of business. All your value structure endless shaken in a matter of seconds. The man who valued ethics and the merit, discovered that the corruption infiltrated right next to him, and worst of all, it had destroyed the career of a woman of integrity. The revelation was not just about the past of Chloe. It was about integrity of one's own Vance Thorne empire. That injustice cried out for repair, and the billionaire felt an uncontrollable urge to do things right. He realized that this was his opportunity not just to help woman who was taking such good care of his mother, but to clean the name of your company, exposing the character, doubtful of his partner. Despite the gravity of the situation, Chloe asked him not to do anything impulsive. His biggest concern was not the revenge, but rather maintain the peace and the focus in the treatment of Ms. Eleanor. But for Elijah, a question transcended the personal. It was a principle. He could not close his eyes to the betrayal and to cowardice that had marked the life of a person of value. An admiration for her, now mixed with anger just against Gregory, cemented a decision in his mind. He would have to act behind the scenes, like a true strategist, to unveil the truth and expose the rot. What he would do next would be calculated, powerful, and transformer. A battle was just beginning, and it would be fought at the highest levels of the corporate world. Anti-justice. The head of Elijah was going 1,000 miles an hour. He couldn't get the report of Chloe from mind. Injustice suffered by her was a weight on her conscience, but, unbelievably, destiny had sown this revelation with the most critical moment of your company. It's that time when you think, gee, why now? Right at that time, Vance Thorne Industries was in the final stages of negotiating a mega contract with the government that was worth billions and would guarantee the future of the company. The business partner involved in slander against Chloe, Gregory Thorne. He was directly responsible for closing this gigantic business, the face that had been negotiating and signing the final documents. Investigategranori miant explodetic raise a cloud of doubts about the integrity of the company's leadership and, potentially, cause a financial collapse unprecedented. It was an ethical epic proportions. On the one hand, the moral and to justice they cried out. Chloe, a person full text to career, had been devastated by a lie and manipulation. A human connection that he had formed with her and his mother drove him to fight for what was right, to prove that character and true matter more than the profit. A sensitivity that he had acquired from contact with the nurse made him unable to simply ignore what he heard. On the other side, the responsibility. He had thousands of employees and shareholders that depended on the stability and of the success of the company. Open an investigation, at that moment it would be seen as an act of sabotage and irresponsibility by the council. The dilemma was brutal. He would choose the personal ethics, risking the enterprise, or would sacrifice the justice in favor of financial security of all. Elijah began to go through old documents and emails, looking for any clues about the involvement of Gregory in the past, in a desperate attempt to find an exit that wouldn't cost the mega contract. He operated in the shadows, using his technological resources to dig deep, like detectives with access to very high-level data. He realized he needed an impeccable strategy, something that could expose the truth without causing a collateral damage irreparable. This process of investigation, in secret, made him reflect on the price Ducan. He wondered how many others injustices as to Chloe had been swept under the rug in the name of a balance sheet positive. This transformative experience forced him to reevaluate what it meant to be a true leader, someone who prioritizes intrations of the mere accumulation of wealth. Pressure was immense, but the conviction about what Chloe deserved repair was even bigger. He needed irrefutable proof, one secret weapon that could knock down Gregory at once, ensuring that the truth came to light and that the future of his mother, and even his own, were not compromised. This search took him to a bold plan, which would require courage and one calculated risk to be executed. The office of Elijah, atop a skyscraper in Manhattan, was transformed into a boxing ring. He summoned Gregory Thorne for an urgent meeting on the mega contract, but what followed had nothing to do with spreadsheets and clauses. The voltage between the two was palpable, the kind that makes the air heavy and eyes turn to razors. Elijah, with the truth of Chloe boiling in his chest, he could no longer hold a dim facade of partnership. Gregory, always pompous and confident, tried to maintain control of the situation, talking about the millions that were about to enter the account. But Elijah interrupted him abruptly, leaving the hidden subject floating in the room. He didn't mention Chloe directly at the beginning, but used a coded language, talking about the integrity of the company and the ethics of their leaders, implying that irregularities past could compromise the present. A reaction of Gregory was instantaneous and revealing. At first, a surprise disguised, then, an aggressive defensive. He tried to divert the subject by accusing Elijah of sabotage and to place personal interests above the corporation. The partner exposed his hidden interests unintentionally, showing that he was more concerned about stifle any scandal that could splash on him than on the financial health company's reel. The exchange of words became a real power confrontation, where each one measured the risk of betrayal of the other. Elijah realized that Gregory would not hesitate to destroy, if necessary, to protect his reputation and its dirty secrets. A connection of years was crumbling before his eyes, revealing a partner which was, in fact, a relentless opponent and unscrupulous. He was there to fight for truth and by repair. That one clash of egos and values brought to light the essence what is the can end to betrayal in world to business. Elijah lives in confirmation that the story of Chloe was true. So voltage increased when he finally used the words ethics and fraud in the same breath, demanding that Gregory explain his involvement in the nurse's case. It was a masterstroke of Elijah in the game of strategy. A pressure was unbearable. Gregory launched a completed, remembering Elijah due mega contract and of the financial losses that an investigation would entail. He insinuated that any move against him would be seen as attack to itself Van Thorne, promising a corporate war destruction. This threat game only reinforced the conviction of Elijah. The business had to be sacrificed for the moral. The comparison ended without an immediate resolution, but with the certainty that Tyr was declared and that there would only be one winner. Elijah had to act quickly, using his intelligence and resources to ensure that the justice was made and that Chloe had their pair that he deserved. He needed one final play, something so shocking that Gregory could not hit back. The flat that he had devised was ready to be put into practice, changing the game. The decision was made in the silence of the office, but the impact would echo throughout the corporate world. Elijah Vance looked at the astronomical numbers of megacontract, a financial security and Van Thorne Industries for years and, surprisingly, turned his back on the proposal. He chose true and to justice to Chloe to the detriment of profligacy and stability emptied that would come next to a partnership. It was an act of moral courage that redefined what it meant to be a leader truly, someone who values ethics above all. A choice of Elijah, it wasn't easy, of course, but it was the only one that resonated with the new purpose that he found next to his mother and nurse Chloe. He realized that the true success is not measured by the bank balance, but by integrity with which one lives and by difference that is done in the lives of others. This personal transformation was the real one gain from that hospital stay, one less on invaluable priorities and values. He then confronted Gregory for the last time, not with empty threats, but with irrefutable evidence collected by your team investigation discreet. The strain that Gregory had left in the career of Chloe, it was not just an isolated injustice. It was part of a standard of misconduct that Elijah was determined to expose completely. He acted like the leader, which should have been from the beginning, decided, fair and focused on restoration and true. An admiration that Elijah felt for Chloe turned into a deep respect. He publicly acknowledged the courage her in speaking to True, even knowing about the risks it involved, and committed to using all resources and Van Thorn to clear her name and fix the damage suffered in your professional trajectory. What she had was a value that surpassed any million-dollar contract. That decision marked the end of an era of partnership based on blind ambition and the start of a new chapter for the company, now firmly based on the pillar of integrity. Elijah not only saved the honor of Chloe, but also the alma of yours corporation. He demonstrated to the world that, yes, the business and the moral can walk together, and that the justice it does not have price. For Chloe, the recognition and repair didn't just mean a job or a financial compensation. Meant the restoration of your dignity and to validate that your dedication and ethics were, and always have been, unquestionable. She was the hero insolent of this story, the moral strength that had changed the life of one of the most powerful the world. Today had taken her back to purpose. What was in store for Elijah and Chloe? Elijah had broken with the toxic past and opened the door to something new and promising next to woman who taught him the value of human connection. The next step, now without the black cloud of Gregory, would be given together, uniting the vision of him with the sensitivity of it, to create something truly transformative and with social impact.